Fermented foods for gut health and why many often they don't work. And they actually didn't work for me back in time. I actually got more symptoms and it just made it worse. You see, back in time I was consuming tons of kefir, kombucha, sauerkraut and other fermented foods. And it really didn't help me. So in today's video I would like to actually explain you why it doesn't work sometimes and what you should do instead to fix your gastrointestinal symptoms. So back in time I thought that fermented foods would be very healthy for me because they feed so-called, good bacteria inside your intestine, and this was supposed to help my symptoms. But you see, the way these fermented foods work is through the process of lactofermentation. So what they do, they actually ferment, so break down sugar and starch, and in this way they form lactic acid. And it's supposed to be healthy for us, but in reality, if you already suffer from some GI problem, like for example Candida or SIBO or leaky gut, which is super present nowadays, not only in hormonal but also thyroid diseases, but also in normal individuals. I mean, just imagine how much crap and additives we are eating nowadays inside our food, and this kind of additives, sugar and other substances, they unfortunately have negative effects on our gut. So if we put these fermented foods on top of the gut that is already not healthy, we are not only feeding the good bacteria, but unfortunately also bad bacteria. Not only that, but also these fermented foods are usually high in prebiotics. Prebiotics are naturally occurring plant fibers that in addition continue to feed both your good and bad gut bacteria. So in order to fix it, it's better to at first calm down these bad bacteria and restore them and eliminate them, and only then take care of them instead of just putting more fire on fire. This is usually a bad idea. Third mistake and problem with fermented foods is that they also have high histamine levels. So if you have SIBO, for example, that usually causes bloating, diarrhea and this kind of problems, you may also struggle with dealing with foods that are high in histamine and with digesting them properly. This is because in SIBO, so small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, you lack an enzyme that serves you to basically digest these high histaminic foods. So fermented foods like for example pickles or sauerkraut will be very problematic for you because they have high histamine levels, but you can't digest them properly because you lack an enzyme that is responsible for digestion of these histamine foods. So what's a better and smarter way of taking pre and probiotics? I always say and suggest to my patients is that to first fix the underlying root cause of your gut problem, which is usually SIBO, Candida or leaky gut, before you jump into taking pre or probiotics, because otherwise if you don't do it, it's like putting more fire on fire, because this makes your bad bacteria to also overgrow. So in order to prevent this from happening, you have to understand which condition you have. Usually you can understand more or less from the symptoms, but in reality the symptoms are very, very similar. So if you don't know which condition you're suffering, but you have symptoms like bloating, diarrhea, some strange sugar cravings, and you don't really know what you're struggling with, like me back in the time, you can benefit from functional medicine tests. These tests are a little bit expensive, so you may want to assess pros and cons of investing in your health, or maybe your health insurance covers it. So if that's you, that's amazing. I really recommend taking these tests. However, if it doesn't cover and if you want to speed up the process, I also recommend you to join our women's community. I will link the joining link below. And in this community, the way it works, we basically give you a specific diet, a protocol of supplements and herbs, and also strategies for 2 to 4 weeks for each condition. So for example, we start with SIBO, then we go to Candida, and then to leaky gut. In this way, we are making sure that we cover all of the conditions, so you don't have to suffer anymore from the symptoms like bloating, sugar cravings, gas, and other strange symptoms of these kind of conditions. And then only then, once your condition is fixed, you can, recover your gut, you can regenerate your gut, and you can start to take probiotics and prebiotics. This is the smart way of doing this. So as I said, back in time I did exactly this mistake. So don't copy my mistake, don't jump into pre and probiotics, at first, because back in time I did it and unfortunately it didn't help me. I was actually struggling for like 6 months. I didn't know what to do, and it wasn't until I really figured out that I have to, at first fix my leaky gut and then only then jump to taking, prebiotics, probiotics, because otherwise these fermented foods will be just damaging your gut, okay? So guys, that's everything in this video. If you have any questions, just comment below and I will see you in the next video.